What is it that Terry Gilliam does? I think it's a sort of magic. I think it's a sort of necromancy. He started doing it with bits and pieces of old Victorian Edwardian illustrated newspapers for Monty Python's Flying Circus, animating them, bringing them to life, but not like Walt Disney brought things to life, but more like Frankenstein, using things that were kind of discovered, dusty objects, drawn from the past and brought into a strange new kind of existence. And later, of course, he started to do this with people as well, and with strange props, three-dimensional objects, curtains, mirrors, pipes, the curlicued and nightmarish world that we know from those films, that we know from Brazil and 12 Monkeys and the adventures of Baron Munchausen. Creating an aesthetic that we'd know anywhere, I think, even if we're not watching one of Terry's films. Somehow, sometimes the real world turns Gilliamesque, or our nightmares become Gilliamesque. And there are very few filmmakers, I think, who we can say this about. We could say it about Fellini, we could say it about Hitchcock, we could say it about Jodorowsky, we could say it about Orson Welles. One of them is here tonight to accept the Arden Slapstick Award for Visual Comedy, and this clip will give you a clue who it is.
You said you hadn't seen that for years.
No, I just wondered what happened to that guy.
Well, where did he start, that guy? I feel we all have a sort of handle on what your aesthetic is and would know it anywhere. But does it predate your films? If we went back to the childhood doodles of Terry Gilliam or the playground games of Terry Gilliam, would we see some of it?
Actually, I've actually still got some of my drawings when I was very, very young. And basically, what I was doing was turning normal household things, vacuum cleaners, other things, into Martians is what I was doing. And they're not bad. But when it got, then I got into animation, cartoon, all, but the Python stuff is specific because of the materials used, I suppose.
But those objects were always haunted for you, Yeah. Radiators, pipes. I feel these are dangerous things.
I don't know if they're dangerous. I just think, why not have living things everywhere around you? I mean, I was raised in the countryside, and everything is natural. Dirt roads, swamp across the place. And I think it's just the life of things, whether they're animate or inanimate, I'm intrigued by.
And what visual comedy delighted you as a child? We're here a lot of talk of Keaton and Chaplin and Lloyd here, but were you exposed to those?
Actually, it was quite late when I was exposed to them. I mean, I think there was a Sid Caesar Comedy Hour show, which Mel Brooks wrote, and Sid Caesar, Carl Reiner were doing it. That was the first stuff that I really thought, this is funny. And then along came Ernie Kovacs, which most people don't know. He was from Czechoslovakia, good old Ernie, and he had this unique job. He was doing this series, and he had all these visual gags he would do. But the best thing he had, it was the sponsor for Dutch Masters cigars. And so he got to do the commercials, and they were wonderful. So it wasn't like you're in a commercial world and then you go into fantasy. The whole thing blended together. It was fantastic. And I think he was the first surreal comic I've ever seen.
And your first exposure to the art of surrealism too.
Yeah. And once you get into surrealism, I love it because you're basically playing with the fact that we want structure, we want to understand things. And the surrealists start mixing things that have no relationship to each other, and our brains are trying to make sense of this. And it's exciting to get your brain working occasionally.
And what about the cinematic equivalents of those?
Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. That's it was.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up with. And basically, and the big break for me, the change was, I lived in Panorama City, which is the heart of the San Fernando Valley. And on Saturday matinees, all the parents would bring the kids and dump them in the cinema so they'd go out shopping. And so the kids were of all ages. They were all quite young. They were running up and down. It wasn't any kids with awe or respect for cinema. It was just visual noise up there. And this film came on, a black and white film called Paths of Glory, Kubrick's film. And it was like, what? It was the first time I felt films could say things that were important. It wasn't just about entertainment. It was what injustice and horrible things. And that film has stuck with me all my life, that one. Before, actually, we don't want to leave out Disney, because Disney was important to me. The animation, Snow White, Pinocchio is still on my top 10 list of films ever. And wait, now it's all coming back. We talk and the memory starts working again, crawling up from the spine. And the film, yes, really early on, before we moved to California, the one that got to me was Michael Powell's Thief of Baghdad. I mean, where I can't remember the names, but there's a great genie giant, and then there's that little, who was it?
Taboo.
The Taboo, yeah. And they got caught in this gigantic spider web, and that was my first nightmare. And I would wake up in the morning completely wrapped in all the bedclothes, struggling and screaming, trying to get out of the spider web. And I'm so thankful to Michael Powell for scaring the shit out of me as a kid.
We're going to see a clip now of an opera production of yours. Well, of Into the Woods, sometimes Into the Woods, I think we can call it.
Well, you've got to...
Yeah, we are going to see a bit of that, and we will see in this... Well,
the show was brilliant. If this is the one I think it is, it's crap.
It's here really as a form of evidence.
Okay.
For a link between.
All right. Okay. Good.
The depths of silent comedy. So let us see it.
Oh, the pain starts now.
We had to go through thick and thin.
We had to lose a lot to win. I ventured out and so we did. I never thought I'd be so much I had to be. I'm so
I mean, it was a very shabby, cheap video done of it. And I actually find it embarrassing because the show in reality looked stunning. And that was actually the first idea I had when the idea of doing Into the Woods came up. I wanted to do Buster Keaton's Houseful.
What kind of chord does Keaton strike in you?
Oh, he never asked to be loved, and that's what I love most about Keaton. Chaplin, for all his brilliance, wanted to be loved. Keaton did it, and he was also a far better filmmaker. He was brilliant. He introduced so many techniques and ideas. In Sherlock Jr., when he walks out of the projection booth, down through the stalls and into the film. And then the joke is so wonderful because he's now in the film and he goes to sit down here, and the film then cuts. So what he was sitting on is now not there, and he falls. It's one of the most brilliant and most inventive use of cinema I've ever seen.
And that sense of space and of the ability to move from one world is so important to you. I mean, this is the foundation of Time Bandits and
everything.
Doctor.
It's somehow going through that mirror or gauze or whatever it is into another place, and it's all waiting for you all the time. Most people don't notice it.
And I think there's something very special about the way you do this, because there's always a sense of like the physicality of things and the mechanism of things. Things have a weight and a solidity when you make this sort of magic happen. That's
my problem with most of the CGI films now. Gravity is not there strong enough to do things. Johnny's in Pirates of the Caribbean, he's on a yard arm up there, sword fighting. Come on, give me a break. That's not possible. I don't like the fact that because these kind of films are moving into the world of cartoons, but there's a big difference between cartoons and reality. And I don't like blending the two things. I like Wile E. Coyote getting it seriously every time.
I've got some questions from the audience that I'm going to kind of pepper through this conversation, but one of them is on this very point. It's an anonymous audience member who says, Jabberwocky has such a great feel and texture, you can almost taste the dirt. Do you think the switch to digital shooting means creating atmospheric realism is much harder?
I don't think it's harder. You just have to love the filth, love the dirt, and be aware of it. And I think so many people get caught on the little screens. That's why I like live action. You have to deal with reality. It gets in the way. Life gets more complicated. And in Jabberwocky, I was so obsessed of trying to give the sense of texture, of smell, taste, everything, the way Bruegel can do it. And that's what a great painter achieves. And a lot of people were very unhappy with Jabberwocky. I remember one kid who filled out a card about it, and he was criticizing the film because the people were so ugly and dirty, and I saw him filling it out, and that's exactly what he looked like. So the idea that people want to see themselves on the screen is not necessarily true.
Did you go and explain it to him? Or did you read this over his shoulder?
I giggled.
Jabberwocky comes at a particular moment in your career when Python is very well established is a phenomenon. We're going to look now at some of your early actions. So let's see them. Shut your eyes if you want, but I think you should gaze upon them.
I don't watch this stuff normally, so here I am. I'll watch.
All you lazy people out there who want to get maximum effect from minimum work, I want you to meet the arch idler of all time, Terry Python Gilliam. Terry, what advice do you have for people out there who want to make film animations?
Well, Bob, don't. Keep well away from it. It's dangerous, nasty.
And I wasn't taking drugs.
No.
Absolutely true. I mean, I did, everybody thought I was seriously into drugs. And what I was having to churn the stuff out, it took me a couple of weeks for each show, and I was just doing it myself, working nonstop, and I would have at least one and possibly two all-nighters every week. And that frees up all the natural things that float up. And it used to be, I would look at the paper, pieces of paper, the things would rearrange themselves. Oh, that's better than what I was thinking about. And it really got like that. And so it was cheaper than drugs is all I can say.
So that 3 a.m. feeling, and you're alone with the table, and the camera.
And it somehow frees you. First of all, it is become a dreamlike space because you're so tired and you're doing this thing and you know you've got to get it done. And maybe deadline is a good way of getting rid of your sense of responsibility. You've got to get it done. Doesn't matter. Do this right now. And things, I look at that stuff and I really don't know the guy who did it. It feels like that.
So were you free to dream then? Because obviously in Python, some of these moments are these standalone animations. Others are kind of integrated into the action of other sketches.
Well, see, I was the luckiest of all the Pythons. I had the most freedom. Everybody else had write their sketches, and we'd get together and then vote on which sketches were in the show, and they never knew what I was doing. Sometimes I'd have an idea that I could explain slightly, but most of the time I didn't have the facility to explain what I was doing. And they wouldn't know what I'd done until the day of the show when we were in the studio, and I'd come in with my cans of film. And it's still, to me, the real magic that my stuff worked as well with him. This American coming 6,000 miles to be with these highly educated British guys, and we were in the same mental space.
Yes. And that is interesting because you were not part of a very specific kind of culture.
I know.
All of the others.
I know. And I just found it amazing. They could speak English much better than I could. But the thoughts were all smart, and everybody, the group, we did respect each other. That's the good thing. We give each other a lot of, but there was a basic respect that we're all pretty talented and let's have fun.
And how did who decided that you were going to step back or step forward from the animation table and also appear in front of the...
Well, that was Terry Jones and me. We'd been moaning for a season or so that we didn't like the show, we didn't like the lighting, we didn't like this, we just knew we could do it better. And along when Monty Python and Holy Grail was suddenly there to be done, both Terry and I said to the others, anybody named Terry gets to direct. And nobody said no. And directing was really a kind of dog's body job with Python, but it worked. And both of us learned on the job is what happened.
What about performance, though? Because as we said, you weren't a Footlights boy, were you? You didn't have, you weren't performing at Smokers or anything like that.
I had nothing like that. I mean, in college, in the States, I did things, but I was never, they were all so better trained than I was. They were so good. They were so confident. And I only did things that nobody else would go near because I didn't have the confidence to do the stuff. And it was later, I would be the one that would wear makeup that nobody else would dare, or really uncomfortable costumes. And little by little, at least I got to play the jailer in Life of Brian, and that was a joy.
Well, we're going to see some of the high performances in front of the camera now.
I'm off! What time are you coming back tonight? 3 a.m! I think it's disgusting. You a member of Parliament.
I had the all last night. I just snogging away.
It was not snogging!
Oh, sounded like snogging to me. I could hear his great wet slobbering lips going at you and his hand going
Dad!
round. Yeah?
No, not you.
Oh.
Just mind your language. Sorry, Mum.
I run out of beans!
We was talking! We was not snogging!
Talking about snogging, I bet.
If you must know, we was talking about council rehousing. Would it mean going to live in Hollywood?
I run out of beans! Where the rehouse is right hand, that's all he was interested in.
And has Faye Dunaway definitely said yes? He is chairman of the housing subcommittee.
Snogging subcommittee, more like.
Ralph, do answer that door, will you?
Beans!
Shut up! Yes, Mum.
If it's the man from Propo Rid, tell him it's in the bed.
Sorry, Mum.
It's good.
And I think we can see the evidence for what you said. You're the guy who has to lie down covered in baked beans and you have to carry everything.
I think it was interesting watching that. Remember Alexander Walker, the famous film critic of the Evening Standard?
Always used to complain it was too cold in the screening room.
Well, he did a book on British films in the 80s. that film and anything else Python touched was a footnote. Comedians don't get treated like serious filmmakers. I mean, I couldn't believe that. This stuff was not given any space to be anything except we were probably more successful in most of the films.
Yeah, I was going, and not just the films as well, but all the kind of attendant culture of it, the records, it was a phenomenon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quite extraordinary. Once it started growing, it really grew quite quickly.
We should spend a moment, I think, talking about Neil Innes, who's a great friend of this festival and who is the, songs we hear at that moment. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Neil was wonderful, and we got stuck together when the Python show was traveling around Canada first. And he and I shared a dressing room, and we became really good friends. And Neil was so absolutely wonderful because he was so sweet, he was so intelligent, he was funny, great musician, and he's a great loss. And all I hope is there is a last album that he did, which I have a copy of, which I think it's going to get released possibly this year. And it's beautiful. His songs were so smart and funny. And I loved when on stage, his intro, when he'd come in and do one of his songs, he says, I've suffered for my art for years. Now it's your turn.
So did you start to become more confident about performing as time?
Not really.
No?
I mean, that's like the jailer. It's a lot of makeup. So I'm not me, I'm something else. And that's easier to hide behind.
You can't hide when you're the director though, really, can you?
No.
Everybody needs you need to answer for everybody's question. You need to have an answer for everything.
You're never bored. That's the good thing about directing. I mean, I love it because I'm interested in all the aspects. There's the acting, then there's the costumes, there's the sets, there's the lighting. All of that interests me, and I get my fingers all over all of it, much to the chagrin of many heads of department.
So how did you feel then about performing? Because you don't just do it in front of the camera, but when, live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, that's fun.
See a clip of that at the moment. I'm curious about how that felt.
Well, it's just fun because it's easy, and I don't have to learn lines. I just deal with pies and planks, and that's great. It's the lines. I have this ability to forget them so easily. It's really hard. I mean, it's the part about actors that intrigues me, how they can handle huge lines of dialogue, and they do it. I have the smallest bits of dialogue, and I'm terrified when the moment's about to come.
Well, I think we should jump straight into that and see Terry in performing in Life of Brian. We've already mentioned this before, and at the Hollywood Bowl, probably the biggest live audience that you've ever encountered. Let's see the clips.
Now come
there. You've got the footlights meeting something very ancient and archaic.
I know.
That we've seen the plank gag many, many times over the years.
It was just great fun doing this stuff. There was no way you couldn't enjoy doing it.
Did you enjoy kind of the public dimension of it, being part of this project where everybody knew the lines and were presumably shouting at you?
No, it was fascinating. I mean, the thing about the public shows like this, in college and in high school, I was the head cheerleader. I was always in front of an audience, getting them to do things. I remember, it was kind of like this. It felt fun, and it wasn't about remembering lines. It was very physical, being cheerleader, doing all this in this song, and on it went. And I got 1,000 people to shout at a football. Because I actually said...
You mean literally?
Yeah. I went
pom-poms?
Because I used to come... Yeah, well, I didn't have the pom-poms. Girls did.
Yeah.
I did a lot of other shit. There was a lot of physical stuff. But I used to get all the football game getting people to shout funny words. And basically, Fleck had been considered fairly funny. And I said, now give me a big Fleck. And of course, they didn't hear it properly. And probably I didn't speak the word properly, and out came, And this is back in the early days of the late 50s. You didn't do that.
No, life. Now, and did this stand you in good stead for being a director and moving beyond this?
I don't know. I really don't know. I just know what I want to do, and I get out there and get to work at it. And I mean, it starts always, each day you've got all this physical stuff you've got to start arranging, and you do that, and eventually you're saying, oh, okay, a bit more on that, a bit slower, a bit that line, you're missing that, and you just get into it.
When you became a director of live action features, were you realizing an older ambition, or was it something that sort of developed? Was it something that kind of rose with you from the animation table?
It's weird because I must have wanted to be a director before, because in New York, after college, I managed to save enough money to buy a 16mm Bolex camera. And I was living with two other guys in this flat, and we got into this. They were one was a writer, one was a cartoonist, and there was me, a cartoonist. And we would get a roll of film each week. We had no money, and depending on what the weather was like, we would go out and invent a little silent movie and go and shoot it. And so you're making film.
What kind of situations did you?
Oh, it's like it was snow out there one day, and we just drew some tracks, like train tracks, in the ground, and had a girlfriend lie down across them. And I can't remember most of the stuff. It was just, we also did animation, and we would go around to the production companies and look through their trash. And oftentimes they would throw out films with a long bit of just blank film. And we started drawing on the film itself, making animation. I mean, almost everything I've done, and it's all been learned by doing, not by being taught. And maybe
that idea of scavenging things out of bins, though,
yeah.
That's lots of sort of avant-garde filmmakers used to do that, didn't they? Make collages.
Yeah, there was all of that stuff happening. And this is New York when Warhol was around, and so everything was possible. I mean, a lot of terrible was made. People were keen.
An audience member, Steve, asks, who is your favorite collage artist?
Whoa. Well, it's got to be. There's Stan Van Der Beek, and there's another one too. See, I remember when you're old with Swiss cheese for a brain, there's a lot of holes, and it was Stan. I mean, it was either Stan. I think it was Stan Van Der Beek, and it was the image. He had done one with Richard Nixon. His head was cut out, and Nixon was talking, and his foot was in his mouth. And it was just very crude stuff, but it made me laugh. And I thought, the freedom of that, it's like political cartoons. You pull a bit of this, and you move it around, and put some sound effects on. And to me, sound effects were really important. With the Python stuff, it's me sitting in my flat with a blanket over my head with kitchen utensils and things making noise and all this and that's I just love, in a sense, the naivete that I was living in those days.
Did you manage to preserve any of that as you moved into bigger and grander, more expensive projects? Did that spirit remain with you?
Yeah, it's still, I've got the technical side is very important to me, and playing around is very important. And it's just there's more responsibility because there's more people, there's more money, and it doesn't work quite the same way.
Everybody has to come under the blanket with you.
That's the fun time.
Very important person in the early part of your filmmaking career is George Harrison, who a member of the audience asks you for your recollections of.
George was fantastic. To rescue Holy Grail, Life of Brian was so important. And there was a point where he actually, I'm not sure, he's convinced he introduced me to the idea of Baron Munchausen. I'm not convinced he remembers as well as I did. But it's these things. There was that feeling. The Beatles, there was all this power and money and freedom, and I just loved everything they were doing because they were funny, and music was great and always surprising. And George was the most wonderful patron to have. It was Python and George. Fantastic. And we did a few good things along the way.
We're going to see some of those good things now. We'll see clips from Time Bandits and from the Crimson Permanent Assurance short that went out before Meaning of Life.
Well,
yeah, and from Brazil. So
wow,
let's see the clips.
What a night at the cinema.
Between you and me, Lowry, this no department. Tell records to get stuffed. Is about to be upgraded and... Here we are. Your very own number on your very own door. And behind that door, your very own office. Congratulations, DZ-015. Welcome to the team. Yes. No. Cancel that. Send 2 copies to 5.
Chairs. There's only one left in here now, and I need that to sit on.
Slapstick is what that is.
But it's also, it just takes a few minutes of watching. I mean, we could have picked those moments almost at random from your films, but we know we are in the presence. This is why you are a true master, I think, because we know that we are in the presence of something that we can call people use this word Gilliamesque. Do you remember when people first started to see you as a sort of genre or a sort of...
I know exactly, but I've never quite understood it. To be honest, it's really true. People say they can see myself and they recognize immediately. It's like, I don't see that. I honestly don't. It's just, but it's always been for me to be, I sort of grew up with that word auteur floating around. And I don't actually like it because it's a group business making it. But I always, Fellini, all the people I really admired, their signature is on their films. And that's what I wanted to do. I just went, that's the way I see the world, not the way a corporation sees the world. And that's me. And it's pretty egomaniacal.
But so you don't, I mean, that it's, auteur theory is something that I think has been, in a way, used to deny the other people's contribution
Yeah,
to
I know.
the work. But the idea of the signature is important. I think for me, Fellini is a key person to put next to you, because there's something about the way you see space and something about the way you're unafraid to show us the artifice of the world. You know, we know that these things are made of something.
Yeah, no. In the theatrical side of stuff, I've never really thought about it, but at least it's always trying to be true to something, whatever it is, however artificial. And there's a side of me that always says, film is artifice. This is not reality. This is reality. That is artifice. And I like to keep it that way. And I don't want to pretend. I'm not a realist. I don't know how to. Realism is an odd idea for me. And I think it's art. It's theater. It's whatever it is. And I've always been, from the beginning, just want to do it my way. That it's trying to be as much of a signature and a single voice, but it requires so many people you've got to sort of embrace and bring in. And I love the fact that you get good people, and I've got an idea, they've got a better idea. We leapfrog, and that's how it works. And I like challenging people, asking them to do things that they don't think they can do. And it was always very important for me at the beginning to understand what all the jobs are and how you do them. I can do them all, but I hire people who can do those jobs better, and that seems to make sense.
How was it to try? I mean, the first things were made. You've used the word patronage with George Harrison, a benign person holding the purse strings and writing the checks for these things. How was it when you were to take these ideas and these desires into the culture of Hollywood?
Well, it was. All my life said I don't want to be involved in Hollywood. I sort of grew up out there wanting to be part of that world and knowing it's not going to work. And it was only after really Munchausen that I went to Hollywood. And Munchausen had been treated so badly. And in America, they only made 117 prints of that film. And I think it's one of my best films, frankly. It's like, but anyway, and I was so depressed, and I'd always said, I'm not going to ever work for Hollywood. And then the script turned up for Fisher King, and I was blown away by the script and said, I'm game.
Baron Munchausen became a kind of political pawn, didn't it, as in changes in regime?
Changes of regime. It's the way it works. I mean, because it started with David Putnam when he was running Columbia. He got the elbow in our first week of shooting, boom. And then in came Dawn French. It was one of the first women heads of production. And I spent a bit of time with her saying, it's not David's film, it's my film. But it can be our film. And she was very seemingly supportive. And she said, and at one point with finished film, she said, because it was, I think, 2 hours and 5 minutes. And she said, if you cut that 5 minutes out, we're in. This will be great. And it's the first time I've done a cut because somebody said that, because I was just being politically and reasonably intelligent. And I thought, fine. So the 5 minutes are out. It doesn't really harm the film, but there's a couple of good moments that got ruined. And then it's ready. There it is. And then they did nothing. And then it's when you learn, because this regime changes. The new regime doesn't want any of the old regime films to succeed. So theirs looks great going, and that's what happened. And I was so depressed by the whole thing. And the funny thing is, Hollywood is just, it's very hard to burn bridges there. and the whole thing, they completely did not sell it. It just went out and nothing. And there was a party in Malibu there, and I can't remember, Jeff Katzenberger, somebody throwing a party, and I was, okay, go and see it, maybe meet a few people, and I'm on down the beach, and Dawn comes down the stairs, and this is a woman I hated, and because of what I had played the game, and she stabbed me in the back. And she came down, Terry, how are you? And I said, Don, hi. And we embrace. And then I go, clunk. I just lock my arms, not moving. And I said, Dawn, keep smiling, but you are going to burn in hell for you did this. Keep smiling, keep smiling. And that was it. Because I was so enraged to be betrayed like that, that's all.
And there's nothing a director can do about that, can it? I wonder whether that was, in a way, a kind of dangerous moment for you, because what happened with Munchausen, I mean, I think we can say it was sort of suppressed almost, can't we, by the studio? It certainly wasn't given proper distribution, and it might have given you an undeserved reputation for being somebody who, I don't know, was maybe a bit profligate, or somebody whose films, you know, didn't make money. But when we look at the numbers, they do.
Yeah, I know. That's actually, I had quite a good reputation of being able to make good-looking films for less money than other people. And it was Munchausen where the hit the fans. And Brazil, you know, I'd done something nobody's supposed to do, take on a studio and win, which I did. So I'm the bad boy of Hollywood. And off we go to make Munchausen in Italy. And I had a producer who was German, whose idols were Alexander the Great, Dino De Laurentiis, and Napoleon. Okay. and he had been the associate producer on Name of the Rose. Jake Eberts had been another executive producer. Anyway, off we go, and I'd storyboarded the film very carefully, and we brought in the first accountant. We had raised at Columbia $25.5 million. First accountant comes in, that's $60 million film. Got fired. Another one came in, 50 million, 40, 30, and eventually the fifth one said, 25.5 million? You got the job. I mean, I was not involved in this, the producer. And off we went, and it was a complete nightmare, everything. It just was. And the studios were very happy to see me get my comeuppance is what it was. And on I went. But the film, I watched it just less a year ago because we've done a 4K version of it. And I was just blown away by how good it is. It really is a great, I apologize for years. I now think it's one of my best films.
Well, we're going to see a segue together, a moment from Baron Munchausen and The Fisher King. So we get your moment of peril and then a moment of triumph together. So let's see the clips if we can.
Got you at last. Bienvenuta alla luna, Perone.
Mercedes Rule, of course, one of the stars of The Fisher King, along with Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams.
And she got herself an Oscar. Yeah. And I said, my congratulations was not a bunch of roses. I said, your career is finished. Because what happened in Hollywood, you get an award, you know, other people have had this, they get it and suddenly their agents are asking fortunes for them and they can only do certain parts. And it really was like that with Mercedes. She didn't do that much interesting work for quite a while until her numbers came back down. Mercedes is a brilliant woman. She's just fantastic. Oh. And Robin and Jeff the cast of Fisher King is why it's good. It's a brilliant cast of people.
Tell us about working with Robin Williams, because he's a great clown.
Well, I mean, he was one of the great minds ever on this planet. It's like he's an antenna. Every idea in the universe, cosmos, all pours in. And then it kind of gets swirled around inside of his brain and it comes out with stuff you've never heard before. It's just extraordinary. We were doing Fisher King. That night in Central Park was we had to move it because the original night in Central Park, it rained and we couldn't shoot. So we had to find another location. And there was this Chinese restaurant down in Chinatown that we had wrecked, but had planned to use it. We had to get down there. We were getting down there. It was after midnight before we were able to get enough gear in and start working. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody's just dragging, could barely keep awake. And Robin, out of nowhere, just starts performing. And what's extraordinary about him, he knew everybody in the crew. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people. He had names, he knew their names. He had jokes for each one of us. And he put on 45 minutes of joy and extraordinariness. And we went back to work. We finished the scene. And I just loved working with him. He couldn't be better. What was important in Fisher King is that Jeff is the anchor. Because after our stint on Munchausen with Robin, the two of us, when we got together, it was like we were in the stratosphere, spinning around being absurdly ridiculous. And Jeff was the anchor. He brought Robin down. Robin respected him so much. And Robin's performance is so good because of Jeff holding him back and holding me and Robin back. Actually, with Robin, though, there's so much energy that there were certain days he would ad-lib, and I said, Rob, great, go back to the script. But I knew it was building up, pressure building up, and I said, okay, have a go. Okay, that's good. That bit is no good. And it started working. Little by little, I'd give him enough time to play around, and then come on, back to the script, and it worked. And each time we came back to the script was suddenly different, and it was great. He was an astonishing human being, and he should have been nominated for an Academy Award for this performance. It's the best one he did in his career. It's phenomenal. They completely ignored him. Jeff is, to me, one of the great actors out there. He's just so solid as a human being. He's wonderful, wonderful. And that whole cast, I was in love with everybody in that cast. It was just great.
But what you say about Robin Williams, that desire, he has to be so inventive, but also like to please you as well. I mean, I interviewed him a couple of times.
Yeah.
He even wanted to do that just for a little interview for the radio, to make it as good and as exciting and as sort of peculiar as possible.
Exactly. I mean, there were times, though. I mean, the one time was right. There's a bit in the film. He gets stabbed by these kids, and he ends up in hospital. And that's a big scene when that happens. And we were shooting, and we were behind schedule, and we were losing the light. And Robin was beginning to really get tense because he'd worked so hard to get that scene together, and we were going to have to delay it. And the first assistant director, I said, can you just explain to Robin? And he went over and said, I can't talk to him. He is just like this. And Robin had been a wrestler in college, and I was the one that he at that moment probably hated. And the only thing I could do was go over and just hold him like that. And I'm holding steel that wants to kill me. And it was and it worked. I finally held him down, and we got through it. We did. But he was always funny. He was always pleasing. He was wanting people to laugh, have joy. But inside, there was a lot going on there, and that's why the performance is so brilliant. It's terrifying when it gets worse and worse in the course of things. And I don't know. We were one bit where he's running from the Black Knight when he's just ready to explode and running, and we were doing it on a treadmill. He went an hour after, and I said, Rob, stop, we got it. Yeah, no, there's more. And he just kept digging, trying to find stuff. I really miss this guy.
Does filmmaking always contain an element of struggle? Is it always difficult?
Yeah, it'd be boring if it wasn't. And the difficulty is sometimes the thing that creates more interesting results. Because, okay, it'd be nice if everything just floated along like that, but then something happens, and I find adrenaline starts building. I'm now angry because we're losing time. This is costing money. And adrenaline starts pouring up, and I'm basically, and suddenly the adrenaline pours and new ideas come out. It's again, another cheap drug hit. It's what it is. It works.
Perhaps we can go back to that idea after we've seen a few clips from some more recent work. We're going to see clips from The Brothers Grimm, Zero Theorem, The Man Who Killed Don.
Whoa, this is it.
Your soldiers, finito, they are dead. I'm lucky, survived. See, oh, here, just this little wound. Nothing, just a little, itchy scratch.
Particularly with Don Quixote, the struggle becomes the subject, doesn't it? It's embedded in it to begin with.
Yeah, no, it was 27 years, I believe, It started, it just went on, and it's kind of the point of Quixote is not about success. It's about failure, and yet getting up each time you're knocked down. And that's what it became like that. It really became like this. So took a long time, and in the end, Jonathan got old enough to play the part. And Adam, and the combination of the two of them is absolutely wonderful in the film. And it's great. Again, a film that has been seen by many fewer people is one more moment when you end up dealing with a sociopathic, egomaniacal producer who once upon a time had been a very successful producer, and his name is Paolo Barranco. And he came onto this thing because he had done a lot of films. He had had more films in competition than any other producer in Cannes. And he convinced me that he could do it. He failed to raise a penny. And after 4 months of playing, he pulled the plug as all the actors were about to arrive in Lisbon for our first read-through. Whole thing was over, done. And we had to refinance the film. I had a stroke along the way just for the fun of it, to entertain myself as we went along. And we did it. We finally pulled it off, and it's a really wonderful film. But he's managed to keep it out of the cinemas by sending legal letters claiming to be the producer of the film. And distributors don't like getting involved in legal things. They're a nightmare. So we ended up with the bottom feeders in the distributor world, people who didn't have any money to lose. And the film was seen by a very small number of people.
It's somehow this is what I said earlier about the Gilliamesque somehow extending beyond the picture itself. The whole story of that struggle has a kind of horrifying perfection about it, even if it caused you a lot of pain.
It's like in Brazil, in the end, the battle with Universal. The Universal studio, the building where all the production thing is looking exactly like the towers that come out of the ground. It's almost identical. And this was not planned. It's just these weird connections happen. Reality and the artifice of film, they keep meeting and tangling and try to strangle me is all I know.
We started with Monty Python. We're going to come back to it now with moments from those times when you've got the band back together. So let's see those clips.
It's an important thing to moon the Albert Hall. How many people have had a chance to moon the Albert Hall after they're 60 years old? 4 of us.
Life can be fine if we're both 69, if we sit on our faces and all sorts of places and play till we're blown away. And that I'll is kind of, that's before. I'll is let my lips embrace you. I'll sit and face and tell you. I'll sit in your face and then I'll love you truly. Life can be fine if we both 69, and if we sit on our faces in all sorts of places and play till we're blown away.
In the finest quality spring water, lightly killed and sealed in a treble milk chocolate envelope and lovingly frosted with glucose.
That's as maybe is still a frog.
Well, what else would it be?
Well, don't you even take the bones out?
If we took the bones out, it wouldn't be crunchy, would it?
Constable Parrot ate one of those.
Would you excuse me a moment, sir?
Not right at the moment. Why didn't you say why you wanted to be excused?
It says crunchy frog quite clearly.
Well, people won't expect there to be a frog in here. They're bound to think it's some form of mock frog.
Mock frog? We use no artificial additives or preservatives of any kind.
In future, though, you will replace the description crunchy frog with the words crunchy, raw, unboned, uncooked, real dead frog if you want to avoid prosecution.
What about our sales?
Fuck yourselves. We have to protect the general public. Now, what's this one? Number 5, ram's bladder cup.
We use choice, juicy chunks of fresh Cornish ram's bladder, emptied, steamed, and flavoured with sesame seeds, whipped into a fondue, and garnished with mouse poo.
Mouse poo? It doesn't say anything about mouse poo on the box.
Yes, it does, on the bottom of the box after monosodium glutamate.
Well, this is hardly good enough. In future, you must put on this box a large red sticker with the words, warning, contains mouse poo. Anthrax ripple, cockroach cluster, flip. Take the box. Take the box. Take it.
It's still you getting covered in stuff, even all the decades afterwards.
I know, it's very funny.
I suppose it's because it's such a it's in a way been the backbone of things, or the backbeat anyway of your career. It's perhaps kind of a hard question to ask what Monty Python means to you now.
Well, if I hadn't gotten involved with this, we would not be sitting here and talking. It's as simple as that. It was the most important leap, as far as work and artistry in my life. That's it.
Can we run the next clip, please?
Hello, Bristolians. This is John Cleese, at least I used to be John Cleese, and I've been asked if I would say a few words about Terry Gilliam, who is being presented with the Aardman Slapstick Award for Visual Comedy, which I think is a bit out of left field, but excellent. I'm sure Terry will be there in Bristol, even in this weather, because of course he loves going to these kind of occasions, and particularly to film festivals, because it's the only place that he gets recognized these days. But I'm trying to think of something nice to say about Terry, and I came up with something, which is that he has an absolutely lovely daughter. Holly Gilliam is the Python manager, and she's absolutely terrific. And her mother is a very, very nice woman too. She used to work as a makeup on Monty Python, so that sort of explains Holly. But Terry's very good at making extremely expensive and partially successful films. And I'm delighted that he's with you to be able to explain how he does it.
Terry, I'm absolutely thrilled you're getting this award. I've always seen you as the Wallace and the Gromit of the major motion picture industry. It's an extraordinary achievement. I'm so proud of you. And after making 4 films with you, it seems like more. I'm glad to say that my career is slowly getting back on track. So many, many thanks for that, Terry, and have a great evening. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Well, I think that should do it. God knows, I don't know. Anyway, get an award. Blimey. What next? Oh, how do you switch this thing off?
Hey Terry, congratulations, well deserved. You and I were neighbors for a long time. You cast me in Munchausen. What you didn't tell me is that I'd be killed off in the first scene. I've forgiven you for that. But really, this award, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Well done.
Hi Terry, congratulations on getting the Aardman Slapstick Visual Award. It's been a long time, and again, congratulations, and see you around. Take care, buddy.
Hi Terry, are you okay? I mean, what are you doing in Bristol? Your family, they're all worried about you. They've been calling and all that. You left some note saying that you were going to collect an award in Bristol. I mean, that's just a way of keeping you there. You know, you'll not get back. And Terry, you don't need awards. You honestly don't need them anymore. You must stop this sort of this rush to praise. I mean, God, you know, I've got a few awards, but they're not good. They're not good karma, Terry. I got one of my BAFTAs down the other night, and it had split right down the middle. The whole thing had split. That's something from up there saying no more awards, Mike. No more awards. And you don't need them, Terry. Come back. Your family needs you back. I need you back. The income tax people need you back. You know, there's work for you. You've been offered a remake of The Railway Children. You know, you're not rejected. We love your work, and we love you, and so you get out of Bristol as quickly as you can and make some more movies. Oh God, there's an award.
And there is an award, and you're about to be presented with it now by Dave Sproxton and Chris Daniels.